TypeFinal2 is a horizontal scrolling shooter video game developed and published by Granzella. Part of Irene's long-running R-Type series, it is a sequel to R-Type Final that was released in 2004 and the first R-Type game in over a decade after the release of R-Type Tactics 2, Operation Bitter Chocolate back in 2009. The game was released for Microsoft Windows, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S on April 29, 2001. R-Type is a science fiction horizontal scrolling shooter video game franchise developed and published by Irene for arcade systems and home game platforms. The first entry in the series was released way back in 1987, R-Type, followed by several sequels for other platforms. 10 games in total have been released in the series, and gameplay centers on an intergalactic war between humans and the Bido, a powerful extraterrestrial race that are made from both biological life forms and mechanical structures. Now, most of the earlier R-Type games had the player controlling the R-9 Arrowhead star vessel, although other entries have slightly altered versions of the ship instead. But with TypeFinal2, there are over 100 different ships to unlock, buy, and choose from, and these series of video games will highlight the best of them. This video will focus on one of the more desired and powerful ships to be found in the TypeFinal2 game, the Leo2, or R-9Leo2, which is number 17 in the museum. Overall, the Leo2 comes with a standard wave cannon, a Leo Force DX Force type, a Sci-Bit Plus, and 2 types of missiles, homing and scatter bomb. This video will detail each and show you how powerful and useful the Leo2 can be when it comes to getting through the many difficult stages in TypeFinal2. Now, let's get into the details here of what this great ship has to offer. So first, let's discuss wave cannons and what they even are. The wave cannon is a core feature of R-Type. Though it's not quite as uniquely identifying as the Force, it's still one of the most defining features of flying an aircraft. The wave cannon is an energy-based weapon that has been modified into many forms, often appropriate to the design and function of the ship that it carries. It's a standard feature, in some form or another, on every aircraft in the Space Corps, and thus there are many different kinds of wave cannons. When charging a wave cannon, the pilot must forego firing the main weapons, both the Vulcan cannon and any applicable force weapons, though missiles will continue to fire and fly defensively until the charge has reached the desired limit. The pilot is committed to firing the wave cannon once the charge sequence has started. There's no way to cancel it short of ship destruction or firing the weapon. Since most missions present a target-rich environment, however, this is rarely a concern. Part of mastering an aircraft is knowing how its wave cannon works and when best to use it. Note that a wave cannon can be fired at any point during the charge sequence. Even at a 50% charge, a wave cannon shot can pack a good punch and often pierce weak targets. Typically, each aircraft will possess a single wave cannon, but exceptions do exist. In TypeFinal, every wave cannon has a number of loops. A loop is when the beam bar is filled all the way. If more loops are available, continuing to charge the wave cannon will fill the beam bar again, increasing the energy of the wave cannon shot. The pilot will know when the maximum loop has been achieved when the wave meter flashes. Although it takes a long time, with certain wave cannons it is possible to charge a beam so powerful that it can even kill bosses in a single fight. The most common number of loops is 2, but the number varies between 1 and 4, with a single wave cannon having 7 loops. The loops are labeled Beam, High, Strong, Great, Special, Devil, and Bido. Most wave cannons are unique to, at best, a small group of ships in the R series. However, the fully customizable R-99 Last Dancer, R-100 Curtain Call, R-101 Grand Finale can equip any wave cannon. Now, in TypeFinal2, the Leo2 uses a standard wave cannon, a 2-loop max. The R-9 was designed to pack as much firepower as the main batteries of a frontline battleship. The weapon gathers power in the forward prow of the fighter. The accumulated energy is instantaneously released along a predetermined targeting vector. The complex physics behind this weapon remove the need for a traditional barrel. The Force unit is a defining feature of R-Type. It's a pilot-controlled satellite unit created by Bido Tissue. A Force unit typically consists of a glowing orange sphere with a number of control rods attached. The Force, like its cousin the Bit device, is virtually indestructible and damages whatever it contacts. Pilots should be warned that whatever an attached Force doesn't eat will pass right through it. It contains a catalyst function that converts injected energy into different wave forms. The Force is R-Type's most famous and unique innovation. Described as an indestructible living weapon, it is a glowing, often spherical pod that can be attached to almost any Space Corps ship. It is fashioned out of Bido cells that are captured in their embryonic stages, which are then grown as per specifications to what type of Force they will be. In the R-Type series alone, there are over 50 different varieties of Forces. Force units allow the pilot to focus different waveforms through it in order to create offensive beams. The type of beam depends on the color of the laser crystal. When launched independent of the spacecraft, each Force operates on its own artificial intelligence, if it possesses one. Though no longer actively controlled, a skilled pilot can learn how to detached Force act and use that to advantage. Forces are gained by first obtaining a laser crystal power-up. This summons an embryonic Force device. Further collection of crystals cause the Force to grow, up to a maximum of 3. With each level of growth, the Forces attached and detached attacks increase in overall power. A Force device can be attached to either the front or back of a spaceship, allowing the pilot to provide a rear attack that otherwise wouldn't exist. The pilot normally has a single button with which to control the Force, for both release and recall. By pressing the button when the Force is attached to the ship, it is rocket ejected away in whatever direction it's facing. When detached, the Force can be made to fire, but it uses an array of simple blasters rather than the weapons it supplies to the ship, though a few Forces are exceptions to this rule, like the Camera Force series. This is because the ship's blaster energy itself is being channeled into the Force and amplified by the crystal inside. By pressing the button again, the Force can be recalled back to the ship. Because it homes in on the player's ship, the player can control it in a limited manner by moving the ship as it's returned. It is standard behavior for a Force to try to stay on the same lateral plane as the pilot if the pilots keep distance. If the pilot gets too close, the Force will approach and attach itself automatically. Should the pilot switch sides, the Force will as well, unless the pilot closes for docking, in which the case the Force will generally approach the pilot ship once it's close enough to the speed of the processing along. Now the Force also, importantly, acts as a shield. It is indestructible and can block normal enemy weapons, such as Bido shots. It can also damage or destroy enemies by collision. Even though Force units are massive objects that are normally attached to the front of an aircraft, predictive visual software within the craft remove it from sight when it would otherwise block a pilot's viewpoint. Now in TypeFinal2, the Leo2 uses a Leo Force DX Force type, which is an enhanced version of the Leo Force. It is awesome in battle and on every pilot's wish list. Very few have used it, since it's reserved for pilots with psychic abilities. The red Force is the Claw Laser DX, the blue Force is the Mirror Laser DX, and the yellow Force is the Search Laser LRG DX. A bit device is a satellite weapon that's placed above and below a spacecraft. There are several varieties of bits, with the bulk not appearing until R-Type Final. In most configurations, a bit device is a sphere that complacently rotates. It's composed of a similar energy as that of the Force, though wholly man-made, and shares the nigh invincibility of that unit. A bit device cannot be destroyed by normal means, and damages whatever it touches. The bit conductor mounted on an aircraft allows control of these devices. Like other aspects in the series, the bit devices have been called other things, such as the pit and plasma. Unlike a Force, bit devices cannot be detached from their places unless it's part of an attack. Only 2 bits can be mounted at once. collected one at a time, though exceptions exist, and both are always of the same type. A bit's primary function is that of defense, to protect the craft against battle shots and contact by mere enemies. The standard bit seen in most missions can also fire shots if a particular laser crystal is equipped, and sometimes both bits are required. It deals less damage than the Force, but it still has enough stopping power to give a pilot time to get away from more serious threats. There are 12 different types of devices throughout the R-Type series. Blue pod, camera bit, eyeball bit, green pod, Mr. Healy, side bit plus, red pod round bit, shadow bit, shield bit, and the yellow pod. In our TypeFinal2, the Leo2 uses what's known as a side bit plus, which is an improved version of the regular side bit. It is said to be the strongest bit device. The side bit plus can fire the same lasers as the Leo Force DX. If used without any laser crystal upgrade, or with any of the 3 custom ships, the R-99 Last Dancer, R-100 Curtain Call, and R-101 Grand Finale, and not equipped along with the Leo Force DX, it will fire a standard Vulcan shot in the same way as the ship's basic gun. The pilot can change the direction of the device to provide for rear firepower. The side bit plus can also block certain projectiles like the shield bit does, and when at least one loop of wave cannon is used, the bit devices will launch themselves as a homing attack to also impact anything in their way and ignore terrains, quickly returning to the ship afterwards. The homing attack of side bit plus lasts longer than that of the previous side bit. Missiles are a common ballistic weapon in the R-Type missions, adding auto-firing missiles to the ship's offense. The entry also refers to ordnance that acts more like bombs. These weapons are fire and forget in that they cannot be controlled by the pilot once they're launched. They are primarily for offense, though some of them, particularly the homing variety, can also act as point defense against incoming enemies and projectiles. Once missiles are acquired, they have infinite ammo. Most aircraft have a small number of missile options that they can be deployed with, typically between 2 and 3, but variants do exist. Once deployed, the missile type cannot be changed, so careful thought regarding which missile best complements the ship's force, wave cannon, and bit devices must be considered. Now in our TypeFinal2, the Leo2 comes with 2 missile types, homing and scatter bomb. The homing missile is a standard missile weapon in nearly all missions. The homing missile, when launched, seeks out the nearest target. 2 missiles are fired at once, with a high rate of fire and accuracy. Available to a large number of ships, it's the default missile of the R9 series. The scatter bomb is a cluster bomb that is dropped forward. When fired, it's dropped slightly forward of the craft in a parabolic way. Upon impact, the bomb spreads forward, damaging whatever it touches. Coming up next in our R-Type ship series will be the Amphibian 3, a very powerful ship for the Bido variety, so stay tuned for our next video, which highlights this great ship. Thank you for viewing. If you enjoyed this video and found it useful, please like and subscribe to this channel. Again, thank you.